Okay, good morning. My name's Gary Matsuoka, and we're here at Laguna Hills Nursery on a Saturday morning. Today's topic is going to be on growing dragon fruit, also known as pitayas. This is a store-bought one. It's May in Southern California right now, and we don't have any fruit ripening this early in the year. So generally, dragon fruit is a true cactus. And we do consider it one of the top fruits we sell now. And one of the reasons why is also just due to appearance. So the original dragon fruit are one of the main species, Hyloceras. Let's write this down. So Hyloceras undatus is the original white dragon fruit. This is the Hyloceras undatus here. So the skin is red and the inside is brilliant white. The flavor on them is, of the original one, was something like a watermelon. They've been hybridizing them with different species of dragon fruit or of cactus that are related, and getting different colors, anywhere from white to light pink to red to almost purple. Some of the best ones that we sell are kind of a fuchsia colored flesh in them. And the other reason we like dragon fruit a lot, the seeds are too small to notice when you're eating them. But the skin is very good at, so you can hold it by the skin, which is like a piece of rubber, and just eat the flesh and not get too messy with it. So it's a nice, convenient package. Essentially you can eat the entire insides. You don't eat the skin of them. And they have generally somewhere between a watermelon and a grape in flavor, and we consider dragon fruit now to be one of our top 2 or 3 fruits. So, mangoes may still be a little bit better, and some papayas are awful good, but dragon fruit certainly has become one of our top ones. And the nice thing about it, it is a cactus. So people living in apartments, if you have a sunny balcony, you can grow them. They don't need that much soil for roots because they don't need that much water. Now they like it moist, but they don't use a whole lot of water because they've got no leaves. So they're basically just stems. The leaves became the spines. The original one doesn't have very large spines, but there are some types that do have pretty nasty spines, like this particular one. You can see it looks like a weapon. But the fact that it's a cactus means that if you go on vacation for a month, it doesn't die. It doesn't like being dry. So the Hyloceras undatus is native to Central America, and there's a lot of species in South America also. They said that the Aztecs and the Mayans certainly ate the fruit of these. There's plenty of other cactus that make fruits too, but this one and its hybrids tend to be the best tasting of the cactus fruits. These actually became popular in Southern California, not being brought up from Mexico or Central America. They are actually brought to us originally back in the late 80s, early 90s from Vietnam. So Vietnam, that area of the world, the Malaysian area, started growing dragon fruits a long time ago. So, they got them originally from either South America or Central America, and they did so well in that climate that the people who immigrated to California brought them with them. So the first time we ever saw dragon fruit was from a Vietnamese person who said, "This is the best cactus fruit you can grow." And he brought me one of what is called the Vietnamese giant. So this is Vietnamese giant. It's a red fruit, large red fruit, quite large, up to 3 pounds in size, with white flesh. And we thought, well, this is the best tasting cactus fruit we've ever had at that time. But to us, the white ones, weren't as exciting until they brought the other colors out. And suddenly it became one of the top fruits that we can sell now. Now, but the way these operate is that here it's too cool to bloom from about December or January, all the way till about May. Generally, it's too cool, so they don't do anything. It's too cloudy here. Now in Malaysia, they can flower and fruit, they said, 4 to 8 times a year. So it's pretty valuable there. Here, we get from 2 to 4 blooms a year and 2 to 4 crop harvests per year. So it's pretty nice that way too. But normally here, we don't get the heat to start the blooming till May. Some years it starts earlier. I mean, 3 years ago, we hit 80 degrees in April and 80 degrees in February. We did that this year too, but 100 degrees in April, and we got an early bloom on them. And that year we had 4 crops. Last 2 years have been very cool springs, very cool summers, and we were lucky to get 2 crops. I think we might have snuck in a few on a 3rd crop that year. But 3 years ago was a wonderful year. Everything in my yard was flowering and fruiting much of the year. So 4 good crops. But again, in Asia, and parts of the tropics, they can get flowering and fruiting just about the entire year. Now, the other nice thing about dragon fruit, they're one of the fastest ones to ripen. So here's a branch from my front yard that's blooming today. And if I didn't cut this off, these flowers would become ripe fruit in about 50 to 60 days. In the tropics, it's, our warmer climates, like if you're out in Menifee or the desert areas, 45 days. Here, it's more like 50 to 60 days. And it's a green fruit for a while, and then it turns red. Most of them have a reddish hue right when they're ripening. Some are pure red, some are half red. There are some yellow dragon fruits too, but they usually turn a different color. So the flowers open for one night. Now they say in the tropics, they sometimes open 2 nights. But here they open one night, usually 5 in the afternoon, which is really 4, during standard time. And then they open at night, and then they start closing around 10 the next morning, 10, 11. Now, University of California says they're self-fertile, but a lot of them do, a lot of people who grow these for a living always put their hands in there and get the pollen going. Now the white one, the original white one, which is the Vietnamese giant or Piloceras undatus, is both self-fertile and self-pollinating. So the pollen here is good. So the female part of the flower is this big fleshy thing in the middle. That's the female part. The pollen-bearing anthers surround it. And all you have to do to get it pollinated is make sure the pollen gets stuck on the stigma of the flower, the female part. And this is, now normally for the Vietnamese giant or the white ones, as the flower closes, the pollen from the male anthers touches the part of the female. So it's self-pollinating. The anthers actually close right onto the female part. So you don't have to be the pollinator, and you don't need bees. However, bees do like these. We used to be close. We had a growing ground once within about a half a mile, a quarter mile of a beehive, a bunch of beehives. And you go out there in the morning around, 6, 7 o'clock, the sun's already up. There'd be a dozen bees in every flower. So we knew at that place, we didn't have to stick our fingers in there or do any pollinating. It was done by the bees. And about 2 out of every 3 flowers would make a fruit. Without the bees, maybe 1 out of every 5 or 6 flowers will make a fruit. You get your hands in there, you can almost be certain it's going to make fruit, although some of these are weaker. Some of the flower buds are weaker. You can tell they're smaller. They're just not going to be making a fruit. So, at best, you're going to get 2 out of 3 if you do everything right. And some varieties are better with pollen from a different flower. Now, again, if you got bees and they're going from flower to flower to flower to flower, no big deal. However, if you don't have the bees, it's nice to, what they say is to collect the pollen. And a lot of the guys who do this for a living cut off these little anthers in the evening before they open. And then they put them in a big bowl. And then the next morning, it's all dust in that bowl. And then they just go around and pollinate the female parts in the morning.
We just pull them out.
Yeah, or you can cut them out, whatever is easier for you. So most of them have big white flowers, about a foot across when they're fully open. They've been hybridizing these now with the close relative, the epiphyllums or orchid cactus. So we have some varieties out there that have beautiful fuchsia-colored flowers with fuchsia-colored flesh. I mean, those are pretty nice too. So, but the majority of them are white blooming.
Do they need full sun?
Around here, we usually recommend full sun. They can get by with a little less, but this was laying on my front yard on gravel south side of my house. So it was getting full on sun against ample water there. It does quite well. Soil type doesn't matter. I mean, we've been talking about that for quite a few years now. So clay is fine, sandy soil is fine, anything between is fine. As long as you don't mix compost with the soil, the dragon fruit is fine. The compost makes everything rot, especially if it's in clay. Clay and compost, bad combination. You'll get rot every time. Most potting soils are compost. If you put dragon fruit in a pot with compost potting soils, you won't get a very good root system. We made our own potting soils 30 years ago that don't have compost in them. And among dragon fruit growers, a lot of them know that our top potting soil, which is mostly quartz. So quartz in the form of sand, sponge rock, and volcanic rock, with a little bit of peat moss and a little bit of charcoal, is one of the best soils you can grow dragon fruit in. Now we like full sun here. If you live about 10 more miles inland, you might go partial sun.
What about in a covered? What about in a covered patio area that it's on the way to our front door and there's a covered area there that we have a little pond? I don't think it gets much, if any, direct sun. Would it survive in a place like that?
Well, they'll grow. They won't fruit as well. Because I've grown them underneath the patio cover, but south side of a patio cover, so they're still getting sun most of the day. And they fruited there, but not as heavily as they could if they were in full sun. So, I mean, again, it's a cactus. It'll grow anywhere. I had a cutting like this laying on my desk for a year, and it was growing on my desk without any soil, sending out new shoot for a year. So, you can, again, it's a good vacation plan because you can just abandon them for a year. They're not going to die. They won't do much because, they do like moist soil. They don't use a lot of water, but they like the soil to be moist because they're coming from Guatemala, Central America. They don't like it too dry. So that's.
So what if I already put the dragon fruits in my in ground, but I put compost in there with it? Should I dig them back out and maybe change the potting?
Well, if you didn't make it more than say 20 or 30%, you probably won't have a problem.
Okay.
I mean, they're a cactus. They don't need many roots to supply the moisture and the nutrition. But if you want to see the best results, get them into cleaner soil. You get more roots. But again, they just don't need that many roots to survive. So now most people do grow them in pots. I grow them in the ground at my house. I have one in a pot that is rooted through the pot into the ground, and we have them all in the nursery here in pots that most of them have rooted through into the ground also. So one thing to know too is that they do have aerial roots. So this was a piece coming off our wall that has roots coming out and trying to attach to the wall. So they'll attach to rocks, to blocks, concrete blocks, cement blocks. They'll attach to wood. They don't attach to metal, and we haven't seen them attached to plastic. So most people who make supports for these, in Asia, because wood rots so fast there, they usually use a stack of concrete blocks. And they'll plant stems on 4 sides of those blocks, and they'll just crawl straight up those stems and then off the top like a little palm tree. So the blocks will be about this high, and then the stems come up, and then they just kind of go outwards from there and hang in space, and they'll trim them back, get them multiply branches. So you have what looks like a octopus coming off the top of these blocks. And that's the typical way they do it in Asia because of the moisture there. Here we can use wood. So a lot of people put them in a large container. Now this won't work. So this is a regular 1-inch stake. There's too much weight on dragon fruit. They'll just break this. So typically people will use a 4x4. 4x4 post about this high and let it come off the top. You can let it go into space, just do that. Some people we've seen some interesting ones where they attach an old bicycle wheel to the top. So the dragon fruit is resting on the bicycle tire with the rubber on it, so there's no sharp edges. We've seen people attach a rebar wire type thing that you'd put in concrete with 4-inch holes through it. The dragon fruit goes through those and out the top of that. So it gives it some minor support. A lot of our customers make cages out of 2x2s and have the dragon fruit inside the cage and then come out over the top of this wood structure that they have. 2x2s, 2x4s. Now again, here we put them in full sun. If you're out in Menifee, you're underneath 30 to 50% shade cloth. Someone in Fallbrook told us they like to grow their dragon fruit underneath real tall queen palms. Gives them some filtered sun to do, because they do sunburn out in the desert. Here, they can still sunburn, but it's usually not devastating. So here's a sample of a sunburn. this probably happened on this branch because we were pruning branches above it that were initially shading it. So this branch was growing in the shade initially, and then we uncovered it and it got a little burn mark. The other thing that they show are these, what we call cactus scabs. So they're little reddish dots that eventually turn kind of grayish. And those have been studied and said, well, it's not a disease. They can't find any disease associated with it. So it's like a freckle. It's something that seems to happen on the sunny side of the branch. This is the back side, clean. Same here. All this happened on the sunny side. The back side is pretty clean. So it's got to be some reaction to the sun. Sometimes when they burn, you'll lose all the flesh, but the inner core is still there and the branch is fine. It doesn't seem to need all this flesh around it to do well. Now, young branches, like this is a fairly young branch here. You can see how thin that is. This is a little thicker. But as the branch ages, it gets really thick. See how thick this particular one is. And when they're this thick, that's when they can bloom or make more branches. You had a question?
Oh, yeah. How about growing one on chain link fence?
It'll weigh it down, but it'll probably work. Now they don't attach to it. You'll have to tie it to it.
Oh, that's because it's metal.
Right. At least that's what all the literature says. They don't attach to metal. So. Okay, so the most common way, especially in Asia, commercially, the way they grow these. So in California, typically we'll use a 4-inch stake. And a lot of times we'll put let a dragon fruit grow up each side of it. And they'll have joints on their stems. And then they'll just come off the top. And then usually what they say they do is around May, around this month, because they're due to bloom usually within a month from now. If these are too long, they'll trim them back to get them a little closer. And then what trimming them in May does to them, it encourages. So everywhere where there's, quote, a spine is like a leaf attachment on a regular plant. And there are buds there. In fact, I'll get closer to the camera. There are some little buds starting to grow on these two thorny areas, little tiny orangey red things coming out of the stem.
Almost looks like a ladybug.
And those will either turn into branches or flowers. It's interesting. Sometimes the plant can't make up its mind. Sometimes, like this particular stem here was probably going to originally be a flower because it's got this at the bottom, like the flowers have that. They have these scales at the bottom. And this one may have been destined to be a flower first, and then it's changed back into a stem. Because they usually have 3 or 4 sides. This thing has what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sides. So usually that stem was going to, that it got mixed up. It was thinking, I'm going to be a flower. Nope, stem. So, yes.
So Gary, if I was going to plant that piece that you just had in your hand, ideally, how would I do it? I mean, how much deep into the soil?
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
So this is the way we train them. That's the classic way. You can do it any way you like. I mean, in my house, I've got one just growing on the gravel ground. A friend of mine in Laguna Niguel, has a horse property, and he didn't have a horse. He just let the thing grow on his hillside. And if you look at it, it's like 25 foot wide, a pile of stems about 8 foot tall. He can't reach anything beyond where he can reach, but it's just a huge, massive dragon fruit. He says he gets hundreds off this thing every year. He just doesn't touch it. He waters it, but he doesn't touch it otherwise. So if you have a lot of room, yeah, just let it grow. You don't have to have a support for it. A support, makes it so that you can get real close to it and reach all the fruit. That's the main reason we have a support. It will grow fine on a block wall, so it'll just claw up the side block wall, and you can let it fan out a bit. So if you have space like that, you can do it. Now, we've grown them between houses, so they don't need a full day of sun to do something. I mean, again, more sun you have, more fruit you can get. On this stem, every single node can either make another stem or a flower. But once they're all used up, so like on this particular stem, this little scar here, this dark scar, that one was probably a flower last year. So that particular one is used up, but there's still what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 3, 21, 20 buds left on this stem before it's totally used up. In that case, if this is totally bloomed out, then they'll have to grow a new stem. Now, the new stem can come out, again, in any of these areas. So there's quite a bit of chances to get new growth and all that. Now, when we grow dragon fruit from a cutting, so we sell mostly cuttings. We have these, and I made them $29 because it's not the best. I actually didn't intend to order these. I ordered assorted dragon fruit, and the grower sent me all white. So I just made them a few dollars more than the cost us. These are $29. Normally, a dragon fruit this size plant would be around $60, $70. And we don't usually like to sell them in containers because it just weighs a lot. They're top heavy, they fall over in the nursery real easily. We'd rather just sell cuttings, especially if you got a big cutting like this. These, they'll pretty much any size cutting will root. I mean, all you need is a little piece like this little piece will grow. So usually when you take a cutting of a dragon fruit, we do it during warm weather. They don't root at all before May, outdoors. You can root them inside your house, but outdoors is too cool to root before May or after, say, October. Just forget it. They won't die, but they just won't root. Now, so what we usually do with these is when we want to make a cutting, what I do with them is I will cut them and then put the date on there, because this cut will rot in contact with wet soil at the moment. So you wait at least 5 days, a week is fine, a year is fine, and that cut heals over. And then you just stick them in the dirt and they'll grow. No, they only root out the very end, so you don't stick them in the dirt that deep. Now, a small piece like this, if you bury it about ½ an inch to an inch, that's fine. But if it's a long piece, you've got to attach it to a stick and put the stick in the ground so you don't bury it so deep. All you need to do is bury it an inch or so. And our top pot is fine. So we like to lay these out in a shady spot for a week, let this heal, stick in the ground. It's warm, it starts growing. They respond really quickly to fertilizer, which is interesting. If you put a water-soluble fertilizer in the soil and it's this color, it'll green up the next day. It really responds quickly during warm weather to fertilizer. Yes?
We have a couple of areas that are compost pits, And I'm wondering if it would do okay around a compost pit or if it'd be too hot, the soil.
Heat doesn't seem to bother them much. As long as they're not right underneath the compost, they're fine. They would be fine. They can be a few feet from the.
But you can't plant it right where the compost pit was. Or you shouldn't, or what?
You probably could if it's dirt there. If it's compost there, no.
Okay. But if it's mixed enough so it has enough dirt in there, it would be okay?
Well, if it looks like there's compost left, it's not good.
Okay.
It's got to be real dirt. I mean, they'll grow fine in pure sand. There's no problem with sand or a sandy soil at all.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the only reason people don't usually use sand in these is because once you put sand in here, it would be about 200 pounds.
Yes.
And it's now, the nice thing about that is the dragon fruit won't fall over and nobody can steal it.
That's true. And you can move it about.
And the other nice thing about sand is it's very firm. Now our potting soil is very firm also. You put it in there and you have a stake in there, it won't wobble much at all. Because of the amount of volcanic rock in there, it's pretty stable. Whereas a lot of potting soils, everything starts leaning because it's decomposing. So fertilizer wise, nothing real important. I mean, we use Osmocote when we start dragon fruit, but a good fruit tree fertilizer, I would say make sure it has a decent amount of potassium in it. That's the third number. Potassium makes juice, and cactus is full of juice, the stems and the fruit. So you need a lot of potassium. There's a lot of different, palm food will work on dragon fruit. A lot of the different fertilizers are fine. Yes.
Question in general. What's the highest range of those numbers? Like, from 1 to what? When you're giving the
Well, this is percentage by weight.
Oh, percentage of the mix.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is
I get it now.
yeah, this is 5 pounds, and 6% of it's nitrogen. 4% of this is potassium. This is organic. It's hard to get highly concentrated minerals in organic matter because organic matter is mostly carbon and oxygen and hydrogen. In a chemical fertilizer like this is 15,912. So this is highly concentrated in here.
How high do the numbers go?
There's some fertilizers that are, I think, 55%. The highest potassium we've seen is 22% potassium, and the highest phosphorus, I think, is 55% phosphorus.
So how would they list that on the box? Would it be 55? Or when they give the value?
Well, you can't. Okay, so pure superphosphate is 55% potassium, but once you mix it with something else, it lowers it drastically. So you can't have anything that high in numbers. I mean, there's 15, 15, 15 out there.
That's not high range then.
That's one of the highest things we out there, but I wouldn't recommend it. Too much phosphorus will burn up the roots. So, yes.
How soon after you put them in the soil would you fertilize?
Pardon?
How soon after you put them in the soil would you fertilize?
Immediately.
Immediately.
So in nature, the ground where plants grow usually always has nutrients available. In nature, it's dead leaves on the ground. It's always available to the plant growing. So these cactus would always want something available to them too. So do that immediately, water them, immediately keep the soil looking wet, and they respond. I mean, we'll get 10 foot of growth a year on dragon fruit. It's an amazing cactus. I mean, regular cactus, we've seen 3 foot of growth on a regular cactus if it gets plenty of water. On those regular cereus cactus, we've seen them grow 3 foot a year. A friend of mine had, at her orchard, had a massive cereus cactus that was like 20 foot across. 15 foot high, and they would grow that much a year. But dragon fruit's faster. Dragon fruit, we've seen 10 foot of growth a year on them, so they can haul. Okay, let's see. So here's a photo of some of the different colors of fruit. This is, so white was the original, that would be their red skin, white flesh. And this one you saw had this kind of a beet red flesh, but there are some that have a fuchsia, almost a pink flesh. And they can be certainly a lot of them on one stem.
That's in a container.
Yeah, this one's from a container. There's a picture of the flower again.
How long could it remain in that container? Should it gotta transplant it right away?
A decade, but they won't grow as well. It's just, and it'll just keep falling over on you.
So, would you want to go slightly larger or a giant container to transplant it? But that's
Well, again, most people grow them at least in a 15-gallon or a larger pot. 20-gallon is really popular, even among commercial orchards. They often use a 20-gallon pot. So, and we do have, half barrel size 25-gallon pots. The plastic nowadays, 40 years ago, plastic pots lasted a couple years in the sun. Nowadays, you get close to 20 years out of them. Plastic's a lot longer lasting than it used to be. The half barrels we sell can last up to 20 years. Redwood tree pots or tree boxes that we sell 5 to 10 years is about it on those, because they don't have as strong a bands around them. Okay, lost my train of thought. You can also grow these from seeds. If you take these little black seeds, they'll grow. And that's how more new varieties are made, is that the growers just grow a whole bunch of seeds. This is a seedling from a seed.
How old?
Less than a year. It might be a year.
how big would that be a year from now?
Well, when they're small like this, they're kind of slowish. It takes them about 4 years to get to fruiting, 4 or 5 years to get to fruiting size from seedlings. But the bigger they get, the faster they grow. So this happens to be a yellow dragon fruit, which is a different genus, Selenocereus. So most of the dragon fruit are Hylocereus. Selenocereus is considered as good or better tasting. The difference being the fruit has also got spines on it, but they're easy to pick off right when it's ripe. When it's still greenish, the spines are stuck on there like to protect it, but once it ripens, the spines just fall off very easily because it's meant to be eaten. However, this takes 120 days to ripen. So here we'll only get 1 crop a year. They're not as big. They're maybe a pound at max. I'm sure they're doing hybridizing, so they'll come up with different types. But 1 crop a year here, whereas the rare dragon fruit, 2 to 4 crops per year. So you get more on those. Now, in other countries, like in Korea, they were growing these too, but Korea is too cold in the winter. You get snow in Korea. So one of our customers who's Korean, who moved to here, told me this is, what they do is they take stems like this. They can't make them straight. They don't let them curve like this, but they have 6 foot, 7 foot long stems. And every fall around November, they pull them out of the ground and they put the stem in their home or basement for the winter. And then every spring, they'll bring them back out and replant them in the ground. and they lean them at an angle so that they're getting the best sun exposure. So kind of a, I would say from vertical, maybe 30 degrees from vertical. They show me how they, pictures of their yard where they have them leaning against an object, 6, 7, it's about 6 foot off the ground, and their stem is maybe 7 foot long total. And they show me pictures of about 4 fruit per stem on this stem that's just leaning against the fence. So they're getting really good production on these stems. They said they use the same stem for 4 or 5 years or so. And they still, you know, they're used to it. They said they pull them out of the ground every fall and put them back in their garage until the next spring. Even here, they do that. I told them you don't have to do that, but they said this is how we've always done it. So they continue to do that method. So you don't have to have a huge wall or a huge thing of dragon fruit plant. You can just have one stem and it can produce. So you can grow them in a small area if you take a little more, maintenance on it. You can do that easier. Okay. So watering wise, a little bit every day is probably still the best. So most farms, even though you can water, you don't have to water at all. It won't die if it's outside. The rains will keep it alive. But the more consistent the moisture is, the happier the plant is, and that's been shown throughout agriculture now. I mean, a lot of the research we're getting on orchards, and both articles were on citrus orchards. They were watering on drip system 2 hours every 2 days, and they switched. And these were from 2 different countries, research from universities in 2 different countries, and both of them just decided, well, let's try it 20 minutes 3 times a day, which is the same amount of water. And they said results were significant. They had better results the more frequently they watered the trees. Same amount of water, but just smaller amounts more frequently. And the plants, they said, were significantly better looking, better production, just like us. I mean, 1 drink a day, you can survive on it, but you wouldn't be happy at all the whole day. If you 3 drinks a day, you're in good shape. So
That applies to people too.
right. Right.
We're just hydrating through the day
Right.
rather than.
Yeah, you don't want to get dry. Nothing works well when you're dry or when you're waterlogged. So, okay. Any more questions on culture? We haven't seen anything eat these. I'm sure a possum or raccoon, if you grew enough of them, would figure it out. At my house, nothing has been eating them. Here at the nursery, nothing seems to be eating them. I guess there's probably nothing to land on, except for this cactus thing, which they typically avoid. When they're small, snails can really do a number on them. So when you start new plants, especially the new growth, the snails can really get them. Okay, some of the varieties. So there's quite a few varieties out there, or cultivars with different names. Some of the guys who do most of the breeding work or most of the collecting, there's 3 names in dragon fruit in California, the 3 kind of main guys that do this. Paul Thompson may have started this pretty early, but Leo Manuel, and then there's Edgar Valdivia. And most of the cultivars out there are from these collections, are bred by these guys. I mean, Paul Thompson gave his selections numbers and letters like D3, U2. and he gave them to his friends, and they sent them across the country, and they came back with names. People just call them certain things, and this was back in the 70s. So names like Purple Haze, Dark Star, Physical Graffiti. That's the names that came back to Paul Down. He says, I sent these out, and these things come back with all these different names on them that were from that era. Now, some of the other ones that are real famous, Halley's Comet. American Beauty. And we mentioned this one as Vietnamese Giant. There's Bien Ho Red, which may be, a lot of these are so similar. A lot of people will tell you that American Beauty and Bien Ho Red are the same. But these were some of the older varieties that we started with. Now that they keep breeding new ones. Edgar Valdivia has got a lot of the new ones. Asanta, 1, 2, 3. And what they're doing is they're increasing the sweetness and the coloration. I mean, I'm not a fan of the white one, but to keep increasing the sweetness, I think is kind of a dead end. I mean, to me, I don't eat that much sugar in this time of my life. So you just eat smaller pieces of the dragon fruit, I guess, because it's so sweet. They're really sweet. Two that I usually tell people are my favorites. American Beauty is awful good. These are like the top 3 of all time, but there's so many new ones that are incredibly good. It's, you can't say that one's the best, but again, these 3 are certainly better than these 3. Better color, better sweetness, but all of them are pretty darn good. Even the white one, if we have a warm spell, like 2-3 years ago, it's real warm, these are pretty sweet. If it's cool like last 2 years, they taste a little bit like an overripe watermelon, where you're not getting the sweetness out of the watermelon.
What is that one that you have a name of?
This one came from the supermarket. They didn't have a name on it. Now, Paul Thompson's favorite was one called Delight, which is a very light pink. We have our biggest plant out there is a Delight, and it is quite good. It's a very pale pink, and that one's real good too. There are some really different ones, so I don't know I can get a cutting of this one at the moment, but I don't think I can spell this right. El Grullo. And one of our friends who lived up in the canyon had a big dragon fruit farm, and he says this one was the one that his restaurants and stores requested he bring the fruit of. And it's a really different looking dragon fruit. The stems are kind of bluish, grayish with thorns on them, and the fruit has I would say a slightly creamy flavor. It's different. It's not necessarily as good as these, but it's different. But his customers request that from all the time. So we're growing that one, although I don't think I have enough cuttings to send off. And Connie Mayer, so one, can't remember the guy's name. It's also Meyer in Germany created the Connie Mayer, which is one of the first dragon fruits with fuchsia pink flowers. And I grew that at my house a number of years ago, and the fruit was good. Pink flesh fruit, and I pollinated with its own pollen because it's the only one blooming at the time, and it was good with big pink flowers. Now, a friend of mine who's an epiphyllum expert says that the epiphyllum fruit is decent. He eats the fruit of his epiphyllums, and he gets the seeds and starts new epiphyllums that way. The orchid cactus with the big colorful flowers of different colors. But Connie Mayer is one of those hybrids, so they got the colors into, and there's more than that now. I don't recall the other names of the ones with colorful flowers. So you can get colorful flowered dragon fruit too. So in the future we'll have, there'll be oranges and pinks probably and red flowers along with different colored fruit. And I don't know if I have enough cutting stems on this one to give you cutting of that one today either. And then there's the yellow dragon fruits. So there are yellow Hylocereus out there. I don't know if the flesh is yellow, but we know that there's one called Israeli yellow. It's not a Solanocereus, the spiny thing like this that has spiny fruit, but it's a regular dragon fruit that's yellow on the outside, and I don't know what it is on the inside. So we're growing that in the back, but we haven't gotten fruit off of that yet. So there's a lot of stuff out there to get, but all kind of similar. You grow them the same way. They're easy to grow, and a lot of them are very, very good tasting. Yes.
Are there certain kinds that people grow for house plants?
Indoors?
I've got- In Las Vegas, my sister-in-law has this plant.
And it's got fruit.
Well, this is what she said, babe.
That looks like
Beautiful.
it looks like it's on a. Looks like it's on a. It doesn't look inside. Is that it? Well, that's a epiphyllum.
I don't know.
Yeah.
She probably threw away the name. So it's not a dragon fruit?
Well, I don't know. Well, it'll be. I mean, dragon fruit and epiphyllums are close related, so it could be one of the hybrids. Because it looks a little stiff to be an epiphyllum, but it does have the colorful flowers. So I don't know what that particular one is.
It's very beautiful.
But if you can eat it,
Did it turn fruit? She just got it. Ah, I see. Okay, it is pretty. Yes, it is.
all right. So any other questions?